Nördlingen, Bavaria, June 1st, 1590. A knock at the door. Rebecca Lemp, 40 years old, mother of 6 children, answers. Town authorities stand on her doorstep with an accusation that will end her life. Another woman, already convicted and executed as a witch, named Rebecca before she died. Rebecca's husband, Peter, the town's respected tax accountant, is away on business. She's arrested immediately. No warning, no chance to say goodbye to her children, no opportunity to prepare a defense. Within hours, she's locked in jail, facing charges of witchcraft that carry only one penalty: death by burning. The next day, June 2nd, her children write to her in prison. They don't yet understand what's happening. Neither does Rebecca. She's a good Christian woman, pious, honest, respected in the community. She attends church regularly, teaches her children scripture, lives a modest life devoted to family and faith. She believes innocence will protect her. She's wrong. In 1590 Nördlingen, accusations of witchcraft follow their own logic. Once named, you're guilty. The only question is how much suffering it takes to extract a confession. The first letter of innocence, July 10th, 1590. Rebecca has been imprisoned for over a month in conditions we can barely imagine. Dark, cold, isolated from her family. But her spirit isn't broken yet. She writes to her husband Peter with words that break the heart. "Don't hide thy face from me. Thou knowest my innocence. In God's name, do not leave me in this anguish which is choking me." She's convinced this is a mistake, a terrible misunderstanding. The authorities will realize their error. She'll be freed. Her faith in justice, in God, in the law, in the fundamental righteousness of the world, remains absolute. She's already been threatened with torture. Officials have described the instruments, shown her the thumbscrews and the rack, explained exactly what will happen if she doesn't confess. But she hasn't experienced it yet. She still believes truth will prevail, that her good life, her devotion to family and God, her spotless reputation will save her. The letter radiates an almost heartbreaking certainty. She cannot conceive that Christian authorities would torture an innocent woman, that the legal system would ignore truth, that good character and pious behavior count for nothing once you're accused. She has no idea what's coming, no understanding of the machine she's caught inside. Peter's desperate appeal, July 13th, 1590. 3 days after receiving Rebecca's letter, Peter Lemp appeals directly to the town council. His letter is passionate, detailed, desperate. He insists his wife is innocent. He describes her as honest, chaste, pious, a woman who's never entertained an ill or evil thought in her entire life. A good mother who teaches their children the Bible and catechism daily. He demands the right to confront her accusers face to face. He suspects, correctly, that any confession will be forced under torture, extracted through unbearable pain rather than truth. He begs the council to see reason, to recognize his wife's character, to release her before permanent damage is done. The council's response? They schedule Rebecca's first torture session for July 29th. Peter's letter changes nothing. The witch hunt, led by Burgomaster George Feringer and lawyers Sebastian Rettinger and Conrad Graf, has its own momentum. These men have conducted witch trials before. They know the procedure. Once accused, you're guilty. The torture isn't to determine guilt. It's to extract the required confession and names of accomplices. The machine is already in motion. Nothing Peter says can stop it. The first torture, July 29th, 1590. They begin with the thumbscrews, metal devices that crush the thumbs and fingers, slowly increasing pressure until bones break and flesh tears. Rebecca screams, begs, maintains her innocence through the agony. The pain is unimaginable, but she holds firm. She tells the truth. She's innocent. She's never met the devil, never harmed anyone, never practiced witchcraft. Her resistance enrages her torturers. They escalate. The Spanish boot comes next. Iron plates that encase the legs from ankle to knee. Wooden wedges are hammered between the plates and their flesh, crushing calves and shins, splintering bones. The sound of breaking bones fills the torture chamber. Still she doesn't confess. The pain is beyond description, beyond endurance. But she clings to truth, to innocence, to God. The next day, July 30th, they use the strappado, the cruelest torture in their arsenal. Her hands are tied behind her back. Ropes attached to her wrists hoist her into the air. Her full body weight hangs from dislocated shoulders. Ligaments tear, tendons snap. They attach heavy weights to her feet, increasing the agony exponentially. Finally, after hours of torture, Rebecca's body breaks, and with it, her spirit. She confesses to everything they want to hear. The forced confession. Under torture, through screams and tears, Rebecca admits, 3 years ago, a man appeared to her. He was courteous and noble-bearing, dressed in black, but he had paws for feet. The devil himself had come for her soul. She confesses she agreed to become his lover. She signed a document in black ink renouncing God, Christ, and the Virgin Mary. In exchange, the evil one gave her gray powder and yellow liquid, instruments of death to kill her enemies. She murdered her servant, old Anna, by stroking her skin with the powder. The woman died in agony. She killed a visitor, Katharina von Neer, the same way. She names other women who joined her in the devil's company. Accusations that will lead to more arrests, more torture, more executions. None of it is true, not one word. Every detail is extracted through unbearable pain. The authorities know this. They've conducted enough witch trials to recognize forced confessions. They don't care. They have what they need. A signed confession admitting to specific crimes with named accomplices. The system has achieved its purpose. The letter after torture. After the torture sessions end, Rebecca is returned to her cell. Her body is destroyed. Dislocated shoulders, broken fingers, shattered legs. She can barely move. The pain is constant, overwhelming. She writes to Peter again. This letter is different. The certainty is gone. The hope is shattered. The faith in justice has died under the torturer's hands. Inside the letter, she wraps a ring and a rosary. Precious possessions she wants Peter to keep as remembrances. And she adds a note, a terrible, desperate note that reveals how completely they've broken her. She asks him to send her something. Poison, a blade, anything. Any means by which she can end her suffering before they torture her again, before they break her body further, extracting more false confessions. She's begging her husband to help her die, to give her the mercy her torturers won't. The intercepted letter. The court intercepts Rebecca's letter before Peter receives it. They read her plea for poison, her request to end her own life before enduring more torture. And they add a new charge to her indictment, attempted suicide. In 1590, attempting to take your own life is a mortal sin, a crime against God, evidence of demonic influence and despair, the devil's work. Rebecca's desperate cry for mercy becomes additional proof of her guilt. The logic is perfect and perfectly circular. The woman tortured until she confessed is now accused of trying to escape justice through suicide. The system is designed so the accused can never win. Confession proves guilt. Refusal to confess justifies more torture. Begging for death proves demonic corruption. Every possible response leads to the same destination, the burning stake. The coerced confession letter. The court forces Rebecca to write another letter to Peter. This one must confess she's a witch, admit her crimes, accept her guilt, acknowledge the justice of her sentence. Rebecca writes what they dictate. Her broken hand, fingers smashed by thumbscrews, forms the words they command. But they're not her words. They're the product of torture, fear, and utterly broken will. Peter receives this letter knowing it's false, knowing his wife is innocent, knowing every word was extracted through torture or written under direct coercion. But there's nothing he can do. No appeal, no rescue, no justice. The system has already decided Rebecca will burn. The letter is simply a formality. Documentation for the archives proving proper legal procedure was followed. The public confessions. August 13th and 19, 1590. Rebecca is brought to open court, twice. She must repeat her forced confession publicly before town officials and assembled witnesses. The authorities need public validation, the performance of justice. Rebecca, broken by torture, her body still bearing the marks of her interrogation, speaks the words they taught her, admits to crimes she never committed, names accomplices she never knew, condemns herself before the entire town. The spectacle serves multiple purposes. It warns other potential witches, validates the ongoing witch hunt, provides legal cover for what everyone knows is murder, and creates a permanent record that proper judicial procedures were followed. Once the confession is public, witnessed, and recorded, the execution becomes inevitable. The machinery has completed its work. September 9th, 1590. The burning. September 9th, 1590. Rebecca Lemp is brought to the execution site outside Nördlingen's walls. 4 other convicted witches burn with her that day. The town assembles to watch. It's expected, required even, to witness God's justice being administered. Her family is in the crowd. Her husband, Peter, her 6 children, the youngest likely no more than 7 or 8 years old. They watch as Rebecca, mother, wife, innocent woman, is tied to the stake and burned alive. Burning is the prescribed punishment for witchcraft. Fire purifies the soul even as it destroys the body. Or so they believe. In reality, its torture continued to its logical, horrifying conclusion. Rebecca dies in agony, in front of her children, for crimes she never committed, after torture that extracted a false confession used to justify her murder. She's one of 34 women and 1 man who will die in Nördlingen's witch hunt between 1589 and 1598. 35 lives destroyed. 35 families shattered, all in the name of rooting out evil that never existed. The letters that survived. Rebecca Lemp's case is unique in witch trial history because her letters survived. They're preserved today in the Stadtarchiv Nördlingen, the city archives, in Bavaria, Germany. You can request to see them. Hold the same pages Rebecca held in her cell. Most witch trial victims left no personal testimony. We have trial records written by authorities, accusations from neighbors, confessions extracted under torture. But we rarely hear the victim's actual voice, their fear, their innocence, their desperation. Rebecca's letters are different. We hear her. We know what she thought, what she felt, what she hoped, what she feared. We watch her journey from confidence to despair, from faith in justice to begging for death, from certainty of vindication to acceptance of inevitable execution. Her letters are the only surviving first-person account from a so-called witch. The only place we can read the actual words of someone accused, tortured, and executed for witchcraft, not filtered through court scribes or hostile interrogators, but in her own hand, expressing her own thoughts. They're precious historical documents, and they're absolutely heartbreaking. Why her story matters. Rebecca Lemp wasn't a witch. She was a respected accountant's wife, a mother of 6, a pious Christian woman who taught her children the Bible and attended church faithfully, a person whose worst crime was being accused by another torture victim, seeking to end her own suffering by naming names. Her story reveals the machinery of witch trials with brutal clarity, how accusations spread through torture as victims name anyone they can think of to make the pain stop. How innocence offered no protection when the system required confessions. How the legal process was designed to produce convictions regardless of truth. Her intercepted letter, begging for poison to escape torture, was used against her as evidence of demonic influence rather than recognized as the desperate plea of an innocent woman being tortured to death. Her husband's passionate defense was ignored. Her confession, obviously forced under unbearable torture, was accepted as legal truth and used to justify her execution. 35 people died in Nördlingen's witch hunt between 1589 and 1598. Most were women. Most were respectable members of the community. Most were innocent. But only Rebecca's voice survives to tell us what it actually felt like. To be arrested without warning, separated from your children, imprisoned in darkness, tortured until your body breaks, forced to confess to impossible crimes, made to condemn yourself publicly, burned alive while your family watches helplessly. That's the real horror of witch trials, not the mythology of devil worship and dark magic, not the spectacle of executions and crowds, the systematic destruction of innocent people through torture, forced confession, and legal murder, all conducted by respectable officials following proper procedures. Rebecca Lemp's letters remind us, these weren't nameless historical statistics in a textbook. They were people, with families who loved them, with faith in God and justice, with voices that deserved to be heard. We can still hear Rebecca's voice today, crying out from 1590, telling us what happened, bearing witness to injustice. Her letters survived 4 centuries, her story survived, and we owe it to her, and the thousands like her across Europe, to remember, to listen, to never forget what was done in the name of righteousness. Her letters are preserved, her truth is documented, and her voice will not be silenced.